Hey there everyone, Ross Ritterman with you today for another video in the Metropolis of San Francisco Music Ministry video series. We've just about run the course of the 15 days of August and probably chanted 10 Paraclesi services, alternating between the small and great canons over the course of this time. And now we finally come to the celebration of the Dormition of the Theotokos this weekend. And there are so many good things musically we could have chosen to cover for this video, but we settled on looking at the Katevasias for the feast, as well as the ninth ode that will be chanted this Saturday on the feast itself of the Kimisis, that is, and then the following Sunday, which is the Apodosis, or the so-called leave-taking of the feast, in which we will more or less reprise the order of the festal celebration from this coming Saturday. So let's remind ourselves what those canons and Katevasias are, when they are chanted, and how they are structured. The canon is a poetic composition found in the Orthros service, as well as certain other services of the liturgical day, and is structured into 9 odes, which are meant to take the same structure as the biblical odes found in the Psalter. And they were first created by St. Andrew of Crete, and then hymnographers like St. John of Damascus and his brother Cosmas were the ones who really ran with this form and gave us many of the festal canons we still use today, including those for the Feast of the Dormition. Couple things about the canons we're going to chant, and we'll come back to this, of course, when we get to the music. The first canon is by St. Cosmas. It's in first mode. The second canon is in fourth mode and is to a familiar melody. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And one of the features of canons is often the use of the convention called an acrostic, and the idea that the first letters of each troparion, or each line of the hymn in total, combined to make a phrase. And so if you took all the first letters of all the troparia of this canon, we would get this in Greek, panegyrizetosan I theophrones, or let the godly-minded celebrate. So we'll come back to the music and explore how we would chant these in just a little while. As I had mentioned, the first 8 odes follow the form of the biblical canticles, and then the 9th ode is most often dedicated to the Theotokos. In the case of this canon, being that it's for the feast of the Dormition of the Theotokos, even though the forms will be very similar, thematically all 9 odes that we're going to be chanting will focus on the Theotokos. Each ode has what's called an irmos, whose function is to give the melody of all the troparia or individual hymns within that ode. So, for instance, we might see Ode 1 has an irmos, and then Troparion 1 and Troparion 2, and those will have the same melody as that irmos, and then we can see the same for Ode 3, which will have a first Troparion and a second Troparion. The number of troparia per canon will vary according to the particular canon, but suffice it to say that you're given an irmos, and the irmos gives that melody for the additional troparia. So the irmos of the ode is chanted, followed by these troparia, and then we end with what's called a Katavasia. The Katavasia comes from the appointed festal Katavasias for the period of the year that we are in. Traditionally, the 2 choirs on either side of the church would step down, hence the name Katavasia, using the Greek word katavasi, to descend, and meet in the middle of the Salea and chant the Katavasia. And this would effectively put an end cap on the ode. The traditional order would be for the chanters to antiphonally chant the canon odes, with the right choir beginning the odd-numbered odes and the left choir chanting the even-numbered odes, with the choirs then coming together to chant the Katavasia. Most often the canon troparia are chanted quickly, and the Katavasia at the end is chanted with a slow melody. Then there will be a small litany from the clergy, and depending on which ode was concluded, we may follow that litany with a kathisma, or a reading, or we might be at the point where we read the Kontakio, Nikos, and Synaxarion for the day, or it might be time for the exclamation to honor the Theotokos right before the 9th ode. And if you've ever looked through the book called the Irmologion, you'll notice that there's a section called Katevasias, which contain the slow melodies, and then there's a section called the canons, which contain quick ones. This is, again, because traditionally Katevasias were chanted slowly, meant to give the people the opportunity to have a meditation on that particular text. Most often in our parishes, we omit the canon and only chant the appointed Katevasias, and those are often sung to the shorter canon-length melodies, or what is called the brief irmologic style, again coming from the Irmologion, where we find the collected irmi in all their music. In this case, the Katevasias come from the canon for the very feast being celebrated, so in this case, each Katevasia would simply be a repeat of the irmos we already chanted, even if we were to do the entire canon. But let's assume for our purposes that we'll follow the typical parish order on Saturday and next Sunday, so we'll chant the first 8 odes of the Katevasias, which are from the first canon for the feast. And that's right, I said first canon. There are 2 canons, as I already mentioned, that would get chanted, and that second canon has familiar irmi. They are in fact the irmi of the 4th mode canon of the Theotokos, which we chant most often during the year, and is also probably familiar to you from the canon for the Akathist hymn. Going back to our breakdown of the canon here, let's just remember that we don't chant the second ode except for particular canons during the Lenten period. Okay. Now, when we reach the 9th ode, even in the parish setting, the full order is preserved. And this is because this is a high-ranking feast, and instead of the usual megalinaria that we chant here, which are the timioteres, or more honored than, we will instead chant the troparia from the 9th ode of the canon, and in fact we will do them from both canons, both the first and second, both the first mode canon and the 4th mode canon. Let's really just quickly remember what that means. So first mode and 4th mode are both diatonic. When we have 4th mode canons, they are typically, almost always, I think without exception, in legiatos mode, or the legiatos flavor of 4th mode, so not in agia or not soft chromatic like we have for apolitikia and other troparia, but in fact in legiatos. We would then end the irmos of the 9th ode from the first canon as our Katavasia, which signifies the conclusion of the canon, and then we will also see in a minute that there are some special verses before each troparia in the 9th ode. So we'll look at some music for the Katevasias and 9th ode as composed by Chadi Karam. And Chadi, we looked at his music back when we looked at the Megalinaria of Pentecost, which we chanted during the liturgy. And we are similarly going to take Megalinaria from the canon here, and we would later chant the irmos of the 9th ode as a Katavasia in the liturgy. We won't spend so much time on that particular usage of this at this moment. But suffice to say, Chadi is an accomplished composer. He's from the Chicago area, and we most often will find his music on the Antiochian Archdiocese website, and it will be there that we will find these particular scores. And Chadi has done a really nice job setting the text from Holy Transfiguration Monastery. So even though these are brief hymnologic, I would personally prefer to chant them somewhat slowly, and even when we reach the 9th ode, the priest or deacon will still be sensing the church at this point, or will have started sensing the church, and ideally we should be able to cover the time amply. So no need to rush necessarily, but a brisk pace is definitely warranted. So let's chant through these, and I'll assume that we're doing this like we were in church on Saturday morning, so after the 8th ode, we'll imagine that the clergy will give the acclamation, honoring her with hymns, Let Us Magnify the Theotokos, the Mother of Light, which tells us to then begin the 9th ode. Just really quickly about the music, the range for the first mode sections is from, I believe, low ni to high ni, so it's just about an octave range. And then if we just briefly skip ahead to look at the 4th mode sections in the 9th ode, which we will chant in a little while, we see approximately that we are going to range from, looks like low pa, and then looks like we're going to hit, I think, a high ni. Yeah. So ni's okay. Yes. Perfect. Okay, so let us begin back at the first ode of the Katevasias. And we will give our brief intonation for first mode, since these are canon, hymnologic canon melodies. These are brief hymns. We will use a brief epihema, and we'll begin. Anonis, adorned in varied colors with divine glory, O Virgin, thy sacred and renowned memorial hath gathered all the faithful in rejoicing, and led by Miriam with dances and timbrels, they sing unto thine only begotten, for gloriously is he glorified. O Christ, thou wisdom and power of God, creating and sustaining all things, establish the church immovable and unshaken, for thou alone art holy, who dost rest in the saints. The words and dark sayings of the prophets dimly foreshowed thine incarnation from a virgin, O Christ, that splendor of thy lightning, which was to come forth as a light for the nations. And the deep calleth unto thee in gladness. Glory to thy power, O friend of man. The divine and unspeakable beauty of thy virtues shall I declare, O Christ, for thou shonest forth from the eternal glory as his co-eternal and an hypostatic effulgence, and having received a body from a virginal womb, thou didst rise like the sun upon those in darkness and shadow. The briny sea engendered fire of the monstrous beasts and trails was a certain prefiguration of thy 3-day burial, whereof Jonah was shown to be the herald, for being saved without harm, even as he had been before he fell in, he cried, I will sacrifice unto thee with the voice of praise, O Lord. Striving both with reckless wrath and fire, godly longing bedewed the blazing fire, and fearlessly laughed at wrath, when with the rational three-voiced, God-inspired harp of the saints it cried aloud, in returning answer amidst the roaring flame, to the instruments of music, O glorified Lord and God of our fathers, and of us who sing thy praise, forever art thou blessed. We praise, we bless, and we worship the Lord, the almighty angel of God. Show the children a flame that refresheth the righteous, but burneth up the profane. And he made the Theotokos a life-originating spring, the destruction of death, bubbling over with life for them that sing. We that have been delivered praise the Creator alone, and we supremely exalt him unto all the ages. All we the generations ever call thee blessed, the only Theotokos. The bounds of nature are overcome in thee, O Immaculate Virgin. For thy childbirth is virginal, and thy death is the espousal of life. O thou who after childbirth art virgin, and who after death art living, do thou, O Theotokos, ever save thine inheritance. All we the generations ever call thee blessed, the only Theotokos. The hosts of angels were astonished when they beheld in Zion their own Master, holding in his hands the soul of a woman. For as befitted a son, he said to her that purely gave him birth, Come, O modest maid, be thou glorified with thy Son and God. All we the generations ever call thee blessed, the only Theotokos. The choir of the apostles drew about thy God-containing body, and as they look upon it with fear, they address thee with a clear voice, as thou goest hence to the celestial bright chambers and to thy Son. Do thou, O Theotokos, ever save thine inheritance. Legatus, beholding the dormition of the Virgin, the angels' hosts were struck with awe, how the Virgin went forth from the earth unto the heavens. Let every earth-born man upleap in the Spirit, and now hold his torch on high. And let all the bodiless noetic host now celebrate joyously the Theotokos sublime and sacred falling asleep, as they cry out, Rejoice, O thou all blessed one, ever virgin and pure Mother of our God. Beholding the dormition of the Virgin, the angels' hosts were struck with awe, how the Virgin went forth from the earth unto the heavens. Come, and upon Zion let us rejoice in the divine and butter mountain of the living God. As we look upon the Theotokos, for Christ doth translate her as his mother into the Holy of Holies, and to a tabernacle that is incomparably better and more divine. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. Beholding the dormition of the Virgin, the angels' hosts were struck with awe, how the Virgin went forth from the earth unto the heavens. Come, ye faithful, let us draw nigh unto the tomb of the Mother of God. Let us embrace it, touching it sincerely, with the lips and eyes and forehead of the heart, and let us drop bounteous gifts of healing that stream from the ever-flowing fountain, both now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. Beholding the dormition of the Virgin, the angels' hosts were struck with awe, how the Virgin went forth from the earth unto the heavens. Graciously receive from us this funeral hymn, O Mother of the living God, and overshadow us with thy divine and light-bringing grace. Grant victory to our hierarchs, peace to the people that loveth Christ, and forgiveness unto us that sing, and the salvation of our souls. Anonymous. All we the generations ever call thee blessed, the only Theotokos. The bounds of nature are overcome in thee, O Immaculate Virgin, for thy childbirth is virginal, and thy death is the espousal of life. O thou who after childbirth art virgin, and who after death art living, do thou, O Theotokos, ever save thine inheritance. All right, great. Now, this won't be the last time we chant that final Katevasias. As I mentioned earlier, it will also take the place of Axion or It Is Truly Right, during the Divine Liturgy. So that last one we just chanted is a very good one to know. You may also choose to chant a slower melody as well, and those are also available in English online. Thank you all again for being with us. We hope that these videos are useful, and we are always after your feedback and ideas. So please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and feel free to spread the word far and wide. We'll see you for next week's series of videos. Until then, a blessed Feast of the Dormition, and all the best.